Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rob. This is RH Midwest Comics, and today it's time for another price update on the biggest keys from the Bronze Age. So, I do this every month. One month I'll do Bronze Age, the next month I'll do Silver Age. So, we've got 2 months of data to catch up on because it's time to do Bronze Age again. So, we're going to look at all the sales data from May and June since we're in July now. So are these books going to continue dropping in price like we've been seeing happen for the past year and a half? Or are they finally going to turn around? So we're going to look at that and we're going to see where they're headed. So 3 books: Amazing Spider-Man 129, first appearance of the Punisher; Giant Size X-Men #1, the first appearance of the new team; and Incredible Hulk 181, the first full appearance of Wolverine. Let's get into it. Here's how we do it. I use only GPA data and only blue labels, all right? So no purple labels, which are restored, no green labels, which are qualified, just blue label data from GPA. And we're going to include everything from 2020 through June of 2024, so 4.5 years of data. And why do we go all the way back to 2020? Because the beginning of 2020 was before all the madness happened with COVID and all the extra money people were getting to spend on books and spending it on books instead of other things because we were all stuck in our homes. So that's why we go all the way back there, to get an idea of how it compares today from where it was when things were relatively normal back at the beginning of 2020. And then grades included, they've got to have at least one sale in 2020 and at least one sale over the past 2 months, right? May or June. And most grades are included. There are a couple here or there that didn't have sales in May or June, so we won't include them, but I'm going to show you those. All right, we're going to show all the individual grade data as well. Okay, here we go. First book, Amazing Spider-Man 129. So the curves look the same for all these books, right? On the left side of the chart is January of 2020, skyrockets as we get into COVID, into 2021, and even into 2022, and then huge corrections. And we end in April of 2024 because that's the last time we did these updates. Okay, so focus on the right side of the chart where we ended in April. That last data point, the average of all the grades sold, $3,179. Now we're going to look at May and June data points. What happened in May? Went down a little bit. What happened in June? Slightly up, but not quite as high as it was in April. So overall, the book is down only $33, down to $3,146 average sale price. So that's down only 1% since April, okay? So ASM 129 kind of holding its own here. And you can look, right, the past 6 months or so, even though the book continues to go down, it's a much slower downturn than the past year and a half, right? The corrections were much more significant. Okay, the other thing I like to do before we get into the individual grades, I like to see how the price now compares to back in 2020. I mean, you can probably do the math in your head, but overall, the book is still up 58% since the beginning of 2020. So basically, we're looking at the 3,146, where we ended in June, compared to the $1,990 book in January. So is 58% a lot over 4.5 years? I don't know. It's decent, but you got to remember, if you've been watching my videos since I started doing these price analysis, we were talking about percentages like 120%, 200% higher than 2020. Now you've seen it slowly whittle its way down to below 100%, 90s, 80s, 70s. Now we're looking at 50s, right? So 58% increase since 2020 is still a lot, but when's it going to stop? When's it going to stop? We don't know. We don't know, right? But no sign of it stopping yet, even though this book seems to be flattening out a little bit. All right, let's look at the individual grades. The individual grades on these books. So I list everything from a 9.8 down to a 3.0. You can see the only one that didn't have a sale was a 3.0 over the past 2 months. So I didn't include that in the data, but everything else had a sale. And you can see it's almost 50%, right? Almost even in terms of grades that increase versus grades that decrease. And that's why this book only had a 1% change, right, in the downward direction. Okay, so ASM 129, pretty close. Slight downward trend, but almost even. Let's move on. Next book, Giant Size X-Men #1. This book, not nearly as erratic as what we just saw in ASM 129. Very methodical downward trend here. Although the past couple months shows a little bit of an uptick here. So we ended in April. Average price of this book, $3,243. Let's look at May and June. Here we go. May data point, big downturn. All right. And when we get into the individual grades, I'll explain what happened. All right. Big downturn. And then June, almost even. I think it's actually going up slightly, but almost a push from May to June. So overall, the book drops by $200 essentially, down to $3,040 average. That is down 6% since April over the past 2 months. Compared to 2020, the book is still up 47%. So on ASM 129, it was what, 58%. This book's only up 47% since 2020. So you can see we're inching our way closer to 2020 prices here. All right, now let's look at the individual grades. So again, 9.8 all the way down to a 3.0. So you can see the 9.8 didn't have a sale. And when you look at all the other grades, you probably see more green than red. So why is this down 6%? Well, look at the 9.6 and 9.4. Those are the two highest value books, right? Because they're the highest grades. And they had massive drops, 16% and 28%. So that really pushes the average down. And even though you have a lot of greens in the other grades, they just weren't enough to overtake those two big drops. Okay, so I think the moral of the story here is, yes, the average sale price, because we're doing averages here, is down 6%, but a majority of the grades did have increases here. So maybe that's a good sign for Giant Size X-Men #1. Nonetheless, the average is still down. That's why I like looking at the grades, right? Because there are multiple takeaways when we look at data like this. And that's the beautiful thing about data. You can look at it so many different ways and take away different things from that. All right, last but certainly not least, Incredible Hulk 181, the first full appearance of Wolverine. This trend looks kind of similar to Giant Size X-Men 1, just a methodical downward trend. You know, a couple ups here and there, but like it looks like there's no end in sight in this book. And you may want to ask yourself, how could the King of the Bronze Age just continue to go down? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's get into the data first, right? So this book ended in April, $4,415. What happened in May? Very, very slightly down. All right, not much, almost a push, but a little bit down. And then June, down again, a little bit more significant. So this book dropped to $4,272. So about $150 downturn there. So overall, the book is down 3%. Not huge, but pretty much in line with how things have been dropping over the past year or so. I mean, this is almost, you know, a linear line here, right? At least for the past year. So the book continues to go down, but since 2020, only up 31%. So I think people would say if, 4.5 years ago, they bought this book and it was only up 31%. Based on how things were going since graded books were introduced in 2000, that wouldn't be a huge return, especially considering that there's really no end in sight for this book continuing to drop. So let's look at the individual grades. Okay, so this data speaks for itself. No sales of a 9.8, no sales of a 9.6, but everything from a 9.4 down to a 3.0 had a sale, and it's almost all red. You had 3 grades that had increases. Everything else had a decrease. So there's no way around it. This book continues to drop. Overall, just down 3%. But just like Giant Size X-Men #1, where it was down, but you had a lot of green sales in there, this book is down and had a lot of red sales. So legit still going down, and it's okay. It just means the end is not near on this book yet. Okay, yeah, and it's a little surprising because huge movie coming out this month, right? Deadpool and Wolverine, and yet this book continues to go down. So this is just another instance in where maybe there's some fatigue going on, who knows, but you know, the movies are not having an impact on comics anymore. They just aren't. So be it. Okay, let's get into the summary here. So here's the overall summary. All 3 books have dropped over the past 2 months since April. Giant Size X-Men #1, the takeaway with that, maybe we should put an asterisk on that, right? Because even though it went down 6%, it was really driven by the 9.6 and 9.4 sales. Majority of those grades actually went up, for what it's worth. And then when you look at the green boxes, again, right? These green boxes used to be all the way, 100%, 200% higher than 2020. Now we're down in some cases only 30%. I think there was, when I did my Silver Age video, there was something that was maybe in the 20s. I don't remember for sure. But anyway, we're getting closer and closer to those 2020 averages. Here we go. Here's what's coming next. So again, right, 3 books we've done so far for the Bronze Age, but I'm going to expand, just like I said, on the Silver Age books. So what's coming next? Later this month, I'm going to do Marvel Spotlight #5, first appearance of Johnny Blaze as the Ghost Rider, my favorite Ghost Rider. And then coming in August, we're going to break into the DC realm, and we're going to do House of Secrets '92, first appearance of Swamp Thing. So those books will have their own video. I'll do a specific video for Ghost Rider or Marvel Spotlight #5, and I'm going to do a specific video for House of Secrets '92. Then when I do my subsequent Bronze Age update, I'm going to start including those with these other 3 books, okay? So that's how we're going to do it. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. These are fun for me to do. Yes, things are still dropping. I don't think it's a bad thing. I keep saying that, right? This is not intended to be a negative video, and hopefully people don't take it that way. But it does create some good discussion, and that's what I like, because the hobby's great, and it's fun to talk about the hobby, whether books are going up or going down. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Until next time, have a great day.